The email that changed everything. I was halfway through a 6-month deployment in Djibouti when my marriage ended in a single sentence. My name is Michael Hayes, 41 years old, First Sergeant with the 101st Airborne, 18 years in the Army, 4 deployments to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq, and now this quiet but brutal post on the Horn of Africa where the wind tastes like copper and sand gets into places you didn't know you had. We had been married for 15 years. I met Sarah in 2008, just after my second tour. She was finishing up her physical therapy rotations, renting a tiny studio with a view of a brick wall and a dying ficus. We married in 9 months. It felt right. It was right until it wasn't. The morning it changed, I was in the comms tent after a 14-hour shift. I had grease on my knuckles from a generator that refused to behave, and the inside of my mouth felt like cotton. I was hoping for a note about a care package. Coffee, socks, a photo of Rex when he was a puppy. Instead, the subject line said, "Let's make this clean.ht." The message was 6 sentences. She had already filed for divorce. She had already moved her friend Kevin into our house in Clarksville. She had already taken half our savings. There was a PDF attached. She wrote, "This doesn't have to get ugly. We can be adults." I read it 3 times, closed the laptop, and listened to the tent flap snap in the wind. Miller, my staff sergeant, looked up from his cot. "Bad news?" "Just stuff at home." He nodded. Soldiers know when not to ask. The thing is, I had seen it coming. 6 months before deployment, Sarah started changing in small ways. New phone, always face down, working late at the clinic far more than any PTA I knew, new clothes that didn't look like Sarah. She stopped asking about my ruck marches or my jump status. She started calling the Army your thing instead of our life. I didn't confront her. That isn't how I operate. My father, a lineman who could tell a storm was coming by the taste of the air, used to say, "Don't fight blind. Gather intel first." So I made quiet moves. I put the important documents in a safe deposit box. Birth certificates, VA loan paperwork, pension details, the deed. I moved my dad's watch and my mom's wedding ring to my unit locker. I opened a separate account at a credit union Sarah didn't know about and rerouted part of my pay there. Not enough to raise flags, enough that if a fire started, I wouldn't be standing in the middle of it with empty hands. The night before I left for Djibouti, we hugged at the airport. Her eyes were dry. "Stay safe," she said, the way you say it to a neighbor leaving for a weekend trip. I should have known. 2 weeks after that email, a notification from our bank came through the base Wi-Fi. 42,300 moved in one transfer. The joint balance was 47.16 cents. I called the bank from the phone hut. The clerk, careful and apologetic, told me Sarah had been moving money for weeks, small pulls at first, then larger ones. The big transfer went to a new account under the name K. Barnes. Kevin. When I hung up, I stood in the plywood corridor listening to other men talk to their wives and kids. Laughter, plans for birthday parties, a toddler shrieking because daddy was in a rectangle. Normal life. I wasn't angry. It was something colder, narrower. Focus. That night, I logged into the home security system. I had installed it myself. Sarah forgot I could access feeds remotely. A gray F-150 in my driveway. A man with a backwards cap walking my dog and drinking from my 101st mug. Sarah leaned against the kitchen counter I had tiled by hand during my last leave. She laughed. He touched her wrist like it was already his house. I closed the laptop and made a list. 1. Request emergency leave through Captain Yates. 2. Call Sam Hargrove, former platoon, now a lawyer in Nashville. 3. Pull deed and lien records. The VA loan is in my name. 4. Lock pension and TSB accounts. 5. Inventory the house from the camera angles. Screenshots, timestamps, cloud backup. 3 days later, Sam emailed. There was a refinance application dated 2 weeks after I left. It had my signature. Except it didn't. The middle initial was off. The stroke order was wrong. The notary's seal was from a county Sarah never had reason to visit. $80,000 in equity pulled out. Co-applicant, Kevin Barnes. "Mike," Sam said on a secure call, "this is textbook fraud. Since the VA loan is yours, your consent is required. I can freeze parts of this if we move now, but I need you stateside." I put in for emergency leave for family fraud. Yates didn't ask questions. 2 weeks later, I was in a C-17 belly full of cargo and sleeping Marines, droning west into night. I didn't go home. I checked into a motel near the interstate as Michael Hale paid cash. Sam met me at a diner in a booth that smelled like coffee and pine cleaner. "You're not going to like this," he said, sliding a manila folder across. Inside, bank statements, loan docs, and Kevin's record. 2 DUIs, a fraud conviction from 2017 tied to a used car lot scheme. There were also printouts of 2 other cases Sam had dug up: wives in Clarksville, deployed husbands, quick refis, fast sales, cash gone. "Same lender," Sam said. "Same realtor, same mobile notary. We're not looking at a messy divorce, Mike. We're looking at an operation that targets military families." The muscles in my jaw felt like wire. What do? We build a case, and we set a quiet trap. We started with the paper. Sam subpoenaed the lender. I filed a fraud report with the VA Loan Center and with the state attorney general. We pulled the video feed from my house to the cloud and mirrored it to a drive Sam kept in his office safe. I still didn't contact Sarah. She texted me once, "Can we talk?" Another time, "We need to handle this like adults." I archived them. No replies. On a Tuesday morning, we parked 2 blocks from my house under a sweet gum that leaked sap. At 9:47 a.m., a white SUV with a real estate logo rolled up. Kevin met the agent in my driveway. They shook hands like partners. Inside, through the kitchen cam, the agent walked Sarah and Kevin through the staging plan. List by Friday, cash buyer waiting, numbers that sounded rehearsed. I recorded everything with timestamps and GPS overlay from the app. The agent's name was Caldwell. I matched him to a photo on his brokerage site. Positive ID. Sam sent the footage to the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force out of Nashville that afternoon with a succinct note: military VA loan, forged signature, pattern matching cases, A and B attached, .s. 2 days later, the reply came. They had been looking at Caldwell and a mobile notary named Price for months. Our footage filled a gap. Agent Ruiz called. "Don't confront, don't tip. Maintain status quo. We will make contact." The next week was the longest of my life. I walked by the river at dawn, ran until my lungs burned, and drank motel coffee that tasted like cardboard. At night, I watched my own house with the volume down. Kevin wore my hoodie. Sarah fed my dog the off-brand treats she knew I hated. I learned the rhythm of my own home without me in it. On Thursday, the lender emailed Sarah that the refinance funds were available for disbursement minus holdbacks. On Friday, Caldwell told Kevin on camera, "We list at 469. Buyer comes in at 470. We move quick. Everybody's happy." On Monday morning, the FBI moved 3 unmarked vehicles, a search warrant, 2 arrests. Kevin and Caldwell in cuffs on my front lawn while Sarah stood on the porch, hands to her mouth, eyes the size of quarters. The mobile notary Price was picked up at his apartment with a suitcase half packed. I stood a block away in an unremarkable sedan and felt nothing like victory, just the steady unwinding of a plan. "What happens to her?" I asked Agent Ruiz when he circled back to the motel to debrief me. "That depends how much she knew and what you want to pursue," he said. "There's room to separate her from the conspiracy if she cooperates. Your call on the rest." I thought about 15 years. About Tennessee summers and cracked iced tea glasses, about that first apartment with the broken AC, about the night I came home early from a jump rotation and found her asleep on the couch with Rex on her chest, about the kitchen tile I cut wrong 3 times just to hear her laugh. I want my house secured, my pension untouched, and the refinance rescinded with prejudice, I said. If she signs a full admission on the forgery and waives claim to the property, I won't push charges, but I want her out. Ruiz nodded. We can structure that. The next days were a parade of rooms with acoustic ceiling tiles, interviews, affidavits, copies of copies. The FBI built wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. The DA weighed identity theft. The VA Loan Center filed an administrative action against the lender for negligence in verifying my identity. Sarah met with her court-appointed lawyer and then with Sam. She cried. She said Kevin told her we were house poor, that I was moving money to leave her with nothing, that the refinance was just paperwork to consolidate and sell later. She said she didn't know about Caldwell's pattern or Price's fake notarizations. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she did. The camera caught a lot, but not the inside of her head. In the end, she signed. Full admission of the forged signature. Waiver of any claim to the house or to my TSP and pension. Agreement to vacate in 10 days. The DA, with my input, declined to charge her. Kevin pled out. 7 years. Caldwell went to trial, tried to swagger his way through it, and drew 12. Price flipped on both. The lender paid a civil penalty and retrained staff on identity verification. The VA put them on a watch list, a small victory that felt both personal and not nearly enough. I moved back into my house for a while. It felt like staging, like I was the visitor. The walls knew things. I fixed the cabinet hinge Kevin had broken. I replaced the coffee mugs. I changed the locks, then changed them again when I couldn't sleep. A month later, I boxed my life and called a realtor, the good kind. We sold at a fair price to a family with 2 squealing kids who loved Rex at first sniff. I shook the dad's hand on the porch and thought, let this house be good to you. It has been through a war of its own. I bought a small place in the mountains near Asheville, 10 acres. A workshop with a concrete floor that sings under boots. A creek that sounds like forgiveness. No neighbors within shouting distance. I filed for early retirement. 20 years is enough. My knees agreed. My back seconded the motion. I told the Army, thank you, and began the awkward, quiet work of building a life that wasn't measured in deployments. Rex and I built furniture. At first it was rough, then it was good. A table for a neighbor, a bookcase for a teacher who paid me in cash and blueberry pie. The shop smelled like cedar and lemon oil. My hands learned a new rhythm. On Thursday nights I drove down to the VFW and sat at the end of the bar nursing a beer that lasted an hour. Men told stories that started in jokes and ended in silences you could fall into if you weren't careful. I learned to say little and listen. In late fall, Agent Ruiz called to say the task force had identified 9 other families targeted by Caldwell's network. Your footage gave us the spine of the case. I said I was glad. I hung up and went for a long walk up the ridge until the cell bars disappeared and the sky opened like a bruise healing. One afternoon, a letter came from a Marine's wife in Oceanside. You don't know us, but because of you, we didn't lose our home. Thank you for fighting when we didn't know how. I pinned it to a corkboard above the workbench where the sun lit it up around lunchtime. Grief is strange. It doesn't move in a straight line. Some mornings I woke up fine. Other days, a song or a smell or the way the light hit the counter made the air too thick. I started seeing a counselor at the VA. She gave me language for things I had always just muscled past. She said, you can be strong and still be hurt. It sounded simple. It was not. At Christmas, I mailed Sarah a box with the few things I still had of hers. College photos, a recipe card in her mother's handwriting, the blue scarf she always stole from me. No note. It came back unopened 3 weeks later. I put it in the attic. Some doors you learn to close. Some you nail shut. In spring, Sam convinced me to file a civil suit against the lender for negligence and against the notary's bond. We settled in mediation. It wasn't life-changing money. It was acknowledgement. It was the system saying, in its slow, grinding way, that what happened mattered. I mentored a kid from up the road who wanted to enlist. I told him the truth, that the Army will ask everything from you, and some days you will want to give it, and some days you will want to run, and both are normal. I told him to keep his paperwork tight, his passwords tighter, and his people closest. He laughed. Then he wrote it down. A year to the day after the arrests, I drove back to Clarksville for the hearing where Caldwell was sentenced. The courtroom was beige and humming with fluorescent lights. He looked smaller in a suit. The judge read counts like turning pages. 12 years, restitution, prohibition from real estate work. Outside, on the courthouse steps, a reporter asked for a comment. I shook my head. This wasn't a story for the evening news to chew up and spit out between weather and sports. It had already eaten enough of my life. Back home, I stood in the shop and traced the grain on a walnut slab with the edge of my thumb. Rex thumped his tail. The creek said the same thing it always says. I planed an edge and watched curls of wood fall like quiet snow. Sometimes, late, I open the old email thread and look at the subject line. Let's make this clean. I think about how clean looks from a distance, how messy it is up close, how truth is usually somewhere in the middle, scuffed and human. If you're waiting for a moral, I don't have a neat one. I have a list. Keep your documents where hands you don't trust can't reach. Cameras are not paranoia. They are memory with a timestamp. Don't fight blind. Gather intel. Don't mistake quiet for weakness. Choose when to speak and when to let the ground give way under people who insist on jumping. I didn't get revenge. I got my house back, my pension secured, my dog safe, and my name unbent. I got evenings where the loudest thing is a creak and a German shepherd snore. I got to build tables that hold other people's dinners and arguments and birthday candles. That's not revenge. That's a life. Last week, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was the blue scarf and a note with 2 words, I'm sorry. S.W.S. The handwriting was Sarah's. I folded the scarf, put it back in the box, and slid it onto the top shelf of the closet. Some doors you don't reopen, not out of anger, out of mercy, for both of you. In the morning, I made coffee, black and strong, and carried it out to the porch where the light comes in slow over the ridge. My phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, First Sergeant, this is Ruiz. Thought you'd want to know. New indictments today, different ring, same playbook. We're on it, not HT. I typed back, good, keep going. George Casey. Then I put the phone face down, listened to the creak, and watched a hawk ride a thermal into a sky so bright it made my teeth ache. I breathed. I let the quiet be what it was. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other boot to drop. I was just a man on a porch with a cup of coffee, a dog at his feet, and a day that hadn't been decided yet. If you want to know how it ends, it doesn't. Not really. It just keeps going, one good choice after another, until your life looks less like something that happened to you and more like something you made with your own 2 hands. That's enough of an ending for me.